Woo, we exist. Hopefully that went to the right place. That should have gone to the Here's Hearth channel. Okay. Hi. Looks like it is working. I'm awesome at this, as you can tell. So, I guess, this, like, gets started and people come in and say hi, we can start by just going around and introducing the three of you and tell everyone, who you are, what your role in the guild is, and what you do. So, let's start with Max.
I'm the raid leader and the GM. I've been here for uh since the beginning. I don't know actually how long that. I was trying to think how long that's actually been.
It's been 4 years.
Has it been? It's like almost 4 years on the dot because I remember it was like spring, like
Yeah.
Blackrock Foundry-ish. So yeah, so wasn't initially the GM. I was a founding officer. Same with Tagzz, and then I became the raid leader at the beginning of Legion. So that was like a little more than 2 years ago now. And then I've been the GM since Nighthold of Legion, after Nighthold or after like during Tomb of Sargeras. That was like a year and a half ago or something like that. I don't know, but something around those lines. Um, yeah, that's me. That's all I do.
That's all. Okay. How about tags?
Yeah, I was one of the founding people with the guild since, like Max said, 4 years. I actually took a break at the end of Legion and then came back for this expansion, but I've been an officer the whole time, sort of healing officer, recruitment officer. Now I don't really do the healing stuff. Either way, I've been playing Pally all the time. Only Pally. One trick. That's me.
How long? When did you start?
Dragon Soul. I used to tank, and
Okay.
then in Dragon Soul Swap.
Okay. And THD? Who are you?
Yeah, I'm just a new guy around the block, you know. I'm just a warlock. I DPS. I'm just a raider. These guys are big boys. They're officers, but I'm just a raider. I just DPS and do the big damage. I joined around the Tomb of Sargeras farm, so I've only been here for 3 tiers in Taurus, Uldir, and Battle of Dazar'alor, but I'm sure that they like me because they have to tolerate my memes.
So what got you guys into wanting to, do this world first rating? Obviously it's long hours, it's a just insane amount of prep. What made you guys want to do this?
Basically, I think most of it came from the fact that we thought we had a chance. It doesn't make sense to take time off work and raid a ton if you're not going to win. So we wouldn't be doing this unless we thought we had a chance to actually get world first. Um, so basically, the guild was formed from a lot of actual Blood Legion people who wanted to raid less. So the initial idea with the guild was definitely actually taking a step back from all those Blood Legion people that were going for world. There's a lot of other people that came to the guild from other guilds that obviously didn't have that same perspective. But really, when the guild was formed, we just started doing better and better. And there came a point, I think it was actually around Uldir, that we thought, we could actually have a chance of getting world first. Let's actually go for it. So it was pretty organic. We honestly didn't have too many discussions besides like most of us just recognized that we could actually have a shot. So we just did it.
So Limit wasn't formed originally with the idea of trying to be a world like number one guild.
No, it was actually formed to be more casual. We were pretty strict in the beginning with our hours.
Casual. Casual going 16 hours a day. I like it. A little bit of a change there. So,
Yeah.
what were the first couple tiers like? What was your progression like the first couple tiers as you were, building the guild and getting to the point that you're at now?
Well, it was interesting when we formed the guild. Like Tagzz was saying, it was actually formed by a large portion of the, not, well, I guess the largest portion, but not a large portion of the guild, just came from doing this. They were day rating in Blood Legion. I think 7 players, maybe 8. I think one of them quit uh, before we ended up actually doing HFC. But there was a huge aversion to ever doing that. Like we couldn't have even. It wasn't like we couldn't say, "Hey, our goal is, hey, 2-3 years from now, let's get really, really good and go for world first." Like literally, everyone would quit the guild instantly. Like that was. It was like almost like this guild was a safe haven and an island vacation away from what these people were doing, because obviously like the community in Blood Legion was, and like the raid morale and atmosphere is totally different than like ours is. Like they were done with that if they weren't winning, because it was so strict and all that
Yeah.
stuff. So there was no talking about stuff like that. It was all like, this is the perfect amount. We raid I think it was 5 or 6 nights a week at the time, 5 hours a night, and we'll just stick with that. Okay, as time goes on, we had, I mean, things naturally happen this way, but we had people cycle out over and over and over, and then naturally you just end up replacing people that are done with doing that kind of thing and bringing other people. I like, honestly, our goal was never, either publicly or within the guild, hey, let's go for world first, until like, honestly, like before Battle for Azeroth came out. Like we would talk about it like, hey, I think we're good enough, maybe we're good enough, in the previous expansion, like when we got World 5th and Nighthold behind only day rating guilds rating, half their hours. And then we got, would have gotten third in a couple of them. And then obviously the TOS thing happened, but like, we were like, we think we're good enough to like throw our hat in the ring. And we didn't decide to do it until then. And that's only after like all of the older people got out of the guild that didn't want to do it. And we replaced them with people who are younger and hungry and either as good or better. And I think the mentality over time, our guild kind of shifted. It took a really long time. And I think the most important thing is it took a huge culture change, because I think anytime you implement so many, like every guild in WoW is so different. One, people who play WoW are generally more like particular kinds of people. Like they're very, like, just as a general thing, like they're creatives usually. And a lot of the moving and getting 25 of those people to get along and like be in the same like lane kind of is very difficult. And especially when you put 5 of those different established guild cultures together and have to merge them together and have that work, that took literally years of like trying hard to have that work. And Tagzz actually mentioned this in the article that just came out, and I completely agree with it. Is our guild community of like what it's like when we were playing the game, like what it's like to raid in this guild. There's nothing like it anywhere. It's only, we're only having fun. There's legitimately no beef or flaming, and that's not like a weird like positivity thing. It's just that everyone here is real, and there's no time for anything like that. I don't know. We just say what we need to say, and it's fine. But like I said, it took years to get to that point, and I think all of it has just been I don't know, a really long process of making our guild go from where it was to where it is now.
Okay. So let's kind of touch on some of the world first kind of stuff. You said that obviously Uldir was the first tier that you actually made a push, and you had never done any world first level prep before that. So between Uldir and then going into this tier, what was your prep like? What was different between the two tiers? And obviously a lot of us know kind of what Method was doing and the 100 million gold they borrowed and all the ridiculousness that they did. Where were you kind of on the scale to there? Were you at the same level as Method? Were you not doing quite as much just because a lot of you guys have jobs and you're not full-time streamers and you couldn't? What did all that look like?
I think that the amount of prep that we did in this raid compared to Uldir was quite significant. We spent a lot of time, especially before the raid, watching all the videos over and just looking at the strategies for all the potential bosses. And we spent a huge amount of time just guild meeting over guild meeting during Heroic Week and even before then. And especially like, all the stuff about the neck level, all that. we kind of, told people you could try to get it, right? But if you don't have the time, you don't have to do it. And from Old Deer, we learned a lot, right? Because in Old Deer, there were just random breaks. There was people who were up for 3 days, just spamming Twitch chats, all that good stuff. I'm one of them, but overall, it was a huge thing that we had to learn, etc. From Old Deer, obviously you have the extend memes, but I think obviously this tier we still learned a lot with the changing of strats consistently, but I'm sure that it will get better in the future. Maybe we'll do better next year, but again, that all depends on how much time we can put forth for the next tier.
Did you guys burn through a ridiculous amount of gold like Method did? I mean, obviously you guys had the transfers back and forth to Alliance,
Yeah.
but that was what?
Yeah, we
15
did.
million?
I think our total tally ended up being 35 million was our total gold spent for everything. That includes Alliance, that includes the Alliance transfers, that includes some of the profession stuff that we did, that includes BOE spot. That's all of it. That's pretty much the extent of what we had. I mean, it's kind of different. Like we didn't do everything Method did, but there's a few reasons for that. Number one, it's like the high end culture in US and EU is just totally different. Like I think a good thing to look at is look at what the top 20 world ends up being on Jaina. I'm actually pretty sure there's only going to be one US guild, if not, and maybe two, in the top 20 world.
Yeah, well, with
And
Wildcard gone.
yeah. I mean, either way, like
They're coming back.
the point is they it's kind of like it's just different. Like the mentality and the culture around high end rating in the EU servers versus NA servers is actually totally different. And that's as true when it comes to recruitment, but also like the fan base surrounding it. Like we did the same thing. Like I think Method did 3 professions. We just did engineering, which is trading Azerite helms. We did alchemy, which is trading trinkets, and some people did JC, but no one did 3. I don't think we really had the gold for that. It was something that was
3.
talked about. Oh, Tagzz at 3. Okay.
I mean, some people did 3 if they needed it for themselves.
Yeah, but I mean, like what they're saying is they did it on all their alts and everything for trading.
Yeah, Josh.
Yeah, like no one fucking did that.
Josh
and
had a
that
video where they like every single one of their players on multiple characters had 3 professions, so they can get all the crafted gear equipped in every slot. They did like 6 different splits with doing individual bosses at a time, so you can get gear and then be able to feed better. You guys didn't do anything completely absurd like that?
Well, no, we did. I mean, we did.
Similar.
We did similar things. Okay, the best way I described it to someone earlier was we knew all of the like strats to getting people gear. It's just that we did it on like a tenth of the scale that Method did. Like they just went all out. Part of that is like they have my stream is probably our guild's biggest stream, which before the tier was getting like 1,000 to 1,500 viewers, and that's like the most we have. I think all of their streams combined are probably over like 10 to 15,000 when they were doing that, and they have 10 times the people doing carry runs for them, 10 times people feeding them residuum. I don't think neck level ended up mattering. I think residuum kind of did, and the little difference in the amount of that each guild had. But the big thing was the heroic week splits and the other. Like if we hadn't have gone Alliance, I don't even think our gear would have been close. Just because like all of our runs, I think we did a total of 4 heroic splits. Maybe it was 5, and they were like 20 to 23 people. And they had like way more than that, and they were all 30 man with people from the community. We just don't have the.
Yeah.
It's just a different thing. Like maybe if we streamed and we had more of a following, obviously that would change, and that's kind of where you can get into the benefits of streaming, because that actually is like an enormous benefit. But we didn't put ourselves in a position to be able to do anything like that. So basically, yeah, we did what Method did. It's just they did it on like a enormous scale where we did what we could.
So the whole big, you spent $9,000 meme to go Alliance, how did you still lose? That's just all kind of bullshit. That was more so you guys just trying to catch up to what Method was at.
Well,
of course.
We did the Alliance thing before they even had the tier, but obviously it didn't have as big of an impact. Like the gold that it cost us to go alliance was less than they spent on VOEs, for example.
Okay.
Um, so we did what we could. We spent we spent all the gold we had, and we took out like essentially loans as they did, just couldn't get as much gold.
Okay. And that'll be paid back what from carries and stuff?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. Do you guys see yourselves doing anything different for next year, as far as planning and setup and
What do you
prep?
mean by tier?
Well,
Do you mean raid?
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because like it's interesting that the reason I bring that up is like, okay, Emerald Nightmare, Trial of Valor, Nighthold. That was all one tier. Since there is no tier armor anymore and raids are released individually, there are really no such thing as tiers. For example,
Yeah.
with how infrequently we'll actually be able to take time off and go for world first, the if this raid was just a Emerald Nightmare or let's say a high mall to whatever the Ashara raid would be, Blackrock Foundry, we wouldn't do shit in this raid. We probably wouldn't even day raid. But since it's its own separate tier, and obviously we haven't talked about any of this yet. None of this is like final at all. But like
Yeah.
just to give a point, like that's like how we would treat it. Because like no matter what happened in Trial of Valor and Emerald Nightmare, whoever got world first in Nighthold took world first for that whole tier.
Okay.
None of the other raids were literally completely irrelevant. You could have not even finished them and probably still been world first on whatever metric you looked at. But this raid is like, since there's no more tier sets and raids are not tied together in any way, this is how we would look for going for world first next year. What we would change, I mean, hopefully we have more community outreach and we have more people helping us. But honestly, I feel like we did whatever we could in this heroic week, for sure. And it's just not ever going to be on the level of what Method can do. However, it's not a blame like if we could do that or more, we would do it in a heartbeat. Like we would do whatever it takes, obviously, to like get as much gear, whatever you
Yeah.
can. But you just can't. Like literally, it's impossible to do that.
So for I guess the next raid is going to be this little two boss raid. You guys probably won't be able to push as much because of the whole vacation thing.
We still haven't talked about it yet. We're actually meeting as a guild tonight. We haven't really spoken since, but it's up in the air at this point, and we're not sure. Because
Okay.
if it's like a raid like TOV where the last boss was actually hard, obviously that could take just as long as this raid. But if it's what people expected TOV to be and just like kind of a joke, then who knows? But there's no way that we'll know that going into the tier, really. Like when we went to Helia, we didn't know that it was going to take a week, so who knows?
Yeah. Okay. Um, I guess the biggest question that most of the community has is streaming. If you guys decide to, well, obviously you will raid for the next raid. You'll obviously clear it. Are you going to stream it? Has that been decided yet? I know it's something you've kind of been tossing around.
It hasn't been decided yet, but what we can say is that if the raid was released globally at the same time for everyone, I think it would be a much easier answer. I think we would stream because that actually has a lot to do with it.
Well, it's funny you say that
So
because I like what 100,000 other people were watching the Method streams, and that was on Wednesday. So on Tuesday I was watching BDG, I was watching Wildcard, and you could see where some of the strats it does help being able to watch other guilds go through some of the bosses. Like Rastakhan is probably the most notable example in Phase 3, the Bwansamdi phase, the Death Realm. I watched Method maybe a couple hours into their prog, completely switched the strat to what BDG was doing with like the little grid to keep yourself safe. And that is something that I guess people have to keep in mind when it comes to world first rating and streaming. Is if you guys go through and you're streaming and you have the 16-hour head start, they do get to watch that. So it is kind of a two-way street there. It's not just, well, you have the 16-hour advantage and you should stream because you already have the advantage. They kind of get a bit of advantage there too then, right?
yeah, there was nothing too crazy except for really Big Dumb Guild's strat was way better than ours. But if you do have a crazy strat, might want to hide it. If you're starting a day early, then that just guarantees that they're watching it. If you're starting at the same time, I'm sure people watch each other. Like, for example, we were keeping an eye on what Method was doing, but it's not the same as being a day early and everyone in Method can just watch. And they
Yeah.
do. And a lot of times the argument's made that they don't gain a lot from that. And a lot of times it's true. But if you do have something really creative that you want to keep under wraps, then that just throws that out the window. Obviously, not really the case here. Our strats up to Jaina were not anything too crazy. So, we wouldn't have been showing much, but still.
Yeah, and that's
it has
something
to
you
be
never know
considered.
going into the tier.
I wish that there was a way to stream everything, but make it so that your competitors couldn't see it. I think that would be the most interesting. Obviously,
Yeah.
that is unrealistic, but I think
just
that
call
would be
Twitch,
the
why
best.
don't
It would
ya?
be like it would be like a
Like if we were at a
large.
LAN
It would be
tourney or
like a larger scale LAN like CS tournament or something. Like honestly, that's been the biggest thing detracting us from streaming is the fact that like I think a perfect example is just look at this tier and look at old tier, the two sample sizes of the only times that we have ever gone for world first. Even though old tier was in a lesser extent, we were ahead of them the entire time until pretty much the instant it was over. If we were streaming, like flip it the other way around. So Method ended up winning, right? So if Method started 16 hours ahead of us, we would have gained an enormous benefit against them. We could go into everything with basically a second mind or 20 more minds on what you should be doing something or how you should do it. And I think there wasn't as much of that in Old Year, but in Jaina, that was a great example where Jaina had like there's so many millions of things you could have done differently. It's a super big brain boss in the last phase, especially if you didn't have to burn it. Like there was a million things you could do. And when you're streaming ahead of someone, you kind of give them that advantage. Where like Method stream, well, they like, it would help guilds that are in the EU or whatever, or us if we were worse. It would help us a ton to watch what they were doing, but that didn't end up actually mattering for us. However, for us, it is guaranteed because of starting time to directly benefit that guild almost at all times. I think a good example is like if you guys look at Tagzz write up, and someone can link that in the chat, which is a great. I mean, I was so impressed when I read it last night. It detailed exactly what we were doing, when we were doing, where Method was when it was happening. As you can see from that, because of the 16-hour head start, although that was mitigated a little bit by blockade bugs and some other things, but there was really no like Fetid Devourer this tier. Every boss was so easy that like pretty much you just got to Jaina and that's just what it was. They were doing things the next day what we were doing, and then like we would do this and then they would do it, and then like our decision making was almost identical up until the point where they stuck with the Zerg strat and we tried other things. If we were streaming that whole time, they would have had countless hours of not even having to fuck with stuff. Sorry, excuse my language. I don't know if this is like a PC stream or whatever. They wouldn't have had to waste any time messing with stuff because they would have already saw us do it. Does that make sense? And it's kind of the same argument where like if you look at like what is possible in one reset, the EU has a much higher chance to have a better first reset when you just look at the two things alone. Like look at what this guild did in 7 days exactly, and look at what this did in 7 days exactly. The Wednesday to Wednesday is much more successful than the Tuesday to Tuesday because of the amount of bugs that are there on Tuesday. And the amount, like the extra time you have with things being fixed throughout the week, and also starting by knowing some strats and stuff like that. It's not too much of a deal, but it's enough where like 5 or 6 hours or whatever, you can make the argument of like extra time they would have pulling where like stuff was fixed and they didn't have to worry about bugs and stuff like that.
So what were
but it is still an advantage, to be clear. I don't want anyone to clip that out of context. Like definitely, if anyone had a choice, they would start 16 hours ahead of someone else for sure. But there are disadvantages as well.
What were some of the bigger bugs? I mean, I've heard you talk a couple times now about some bugs on Blockade and a couple things that were changed on Jaina. Can you elaborate a little bit?
Sorry,
Blockade had two bugs. One was the Mythic mechanic, or one of them, is that the last phase mechanic Sea Swell goes on the boats too. And on the first day, it was actually casting from both boats, so you'd get the other boat's Sea Swell as well as your own boats. And that didn't make it unkillable. It wasn't too bad, but it was definitely harder and more annoying. And then the other bug that was on the first day was the ads in the last phase just didn't move at all, and that actually makes it way, way, way easier to kill. Like that's a good bug. If you wanted to kill the boss and that happened, that would be great. But we kind of saw that and stopped moving and stopped playing because we didn't want to get banned.
So
So by the end of the night, I think we had word from someone's friend at Blizzard that, oh, well, you're not forcing the bug, so you wouldn't get banned for it. So we did have like the okay to kill it, but
No way we can do
that would
that.
be just a disaster if we killed it like that
So
and we couldn't release it. I mean, it
they
would
would
just be
spawn in the
terrible.
back and just stay there.
Yep.
Yeah, they didn't move at all.
Okay.
There was no way to even make them move. We want them
Yeah.
to move.
And
because
in
we
fact,
wanted to do the fight.
yeah, in fact, they would turn around and look at like away from the boss. They were just doing.
Even if you spawn them on the boss, they kept looking
Yeah,
away.
yeah, you could spawn them literally on the boss, and they would just turn around and yeah.
Oh, well,
Which-
okay then.
That didn't waste too much time, to be honest, because it was near the end of our raid, and we just called it and went back in the next morning. And obviously Method beat us by like an entire day or a day and a half, so that's only a few hours, but that's just kind of the example of that's literally every tier. Every single tier, there's something like that on that Tuesday.
Yeah,
Like Fetid Devourer
yeah,
last
Fetid.
tier was.
It was
They
stupid
nerfed that
overtuned.
boss. They
Fetid
nerfed
was
that boss like
egregious.
4 times in the first week. The first nerf was outrageous. They like halved the health. It was so much more. And then they even nerfed what they nerfed that value. They nerfed it again, like on Thursday.
Even
So-
on the topic of Fetid, we actually talked about that while we were on blockade because it was kind of like on the topic of bugs, and we actually did the math of like if we have the gear we have now, would we be able to kill Fetid Devourer when it was first released in Uldir before that first nerf? And it was actually close. It was like you would still have to class stack mages and what are now Ellie shamans to like efficiently kill that and still meet the enrage, which was like kind of crazy how overtuned that fight was. Like you had a heroic clear and 7 mythic bosses of gear of the next raid, and it was still going to be tight. And they thought that that was fine, and famously that we weren't swapping to them fast enough.
Yeah, close enough, right? They
Yeah,
were
they were
just off by a
using-
couple numbers.
420 item level probably.
Well, didn't they say something like their testers did better than they expected, or something stupid like that?
Yeah, something stupid like that. Yeah.
So, what about the raid as a whole? I know you guys have all said that it was a bit undertuned, but outside of that, how'd you like the raid?
Pretty undertuned, and it's just one boss really. Like the first 8 bosses, all our strats were just complete. It was just like the most dumb strats for every fight, and they somehow fell over. Like Rastakhan Phase 4 was the most underwhelming thing ever. It was just so sad. It was just like the boss got to 40%, and then he died. And that was it.
Yeah, we actually
And then
spent a lot of time.
Conclave, no health.
We spent a lot of time pre-tier, like having the entire guild meet and think of strats on those bosses, and we probably spent more time meeting than it took to kill those bosses. Like
That
that's,
good, huh?
I mean, that's disappointing. It doesn't, you said aside from being undertuned, that's all it really
Okay.
was. Like we saw some of those fights were really cool. Like Mechtor, awesome fight, 20 pulls. So what? It can't be that good when in the end it takes 2 hours to kill. So.
Yeah, I know when I was looking through, I was watching your kill videos for like Rastakhan and Conclave, and it takes a while to figure out what exactly are the mythic changes, other than just making the numbers a little bit higher, because it doesn't seem like there was all that much of a change in any of them. I mean, Rastakhan, the main mythic change is you have 2 extra frogs, and the ads, if you kill them in phase 3, they go to Death Realm, so you just don't kill them and keep them CC'd for as long as possible. I mean, it doesn't seem like it did a whole lot to change them to mythic this tier.
Yeah, I mean, it's just there's just nothing to worry about. Like Opulence, like it could have been a really great fight, but I think phase 1 was way too long and phase 2 was too easy. It just made the fight kind of boring, actually.
I feel like it was this whole tier. Well, outside of Jaina, I think Jaina was great. Was really good actually. The issue with the rest of the tier was that we had a bunch of people hyping it up, myself included, our guild included, because they tested these Method included. They tested these bosses. The bosses were so creative, even as early as Opulence, where these bosses were like, oh, that's cool. Like that's, you could optimize this in so many different ways. You know, Conclave, Rosticon. These were Mechatork bosses that were very creatively different than a lot of cookie cutter bosses that you saw in Old Year and previous raids.
Yeah.
And some of them looked like, hey, these are going to be kind of hard. Blockade looked like it was going to be insanely hard, like Fallen Avatar hard. They kind of got the first boats right. If you don't kick the boats, like the first boat's healing requirement with 4 healers is very high, and it's still difficult if you just do the whole boat like normal. Like it was definitely like a decently hard boss, and the second phase could have been so much harder, but the boss needed like 20 to 30% more health. The ads needed like 100% more health. None of the abilities do anything. You're able to completely cheese the voltaic flash by being on the side or the front of the platform. But even if you don't, like in our original strat, we didn't do that. We just ate everything, and it didn't matter.
The flash would kill you?
It
No,
does like
not even
40%
close.
of your health.
Not even close.
Oh, wow.
And there's no other damage, so it's not even potentially lethal. It's just nothing.
Because if you stay still, you can only get hit by like 1, right?
Yep.
Wow. Okay.
I don't know, man. The thing with this tier and why it's been so disappointing outside of Jaina was that there were so many bosses that could have, specifically Mechatork, Rosticon, and Blockade could have been very, very difficult in either singular parts of the fights, like the end of Rosticon, or just in general. I think all of Mechatork and specifically the end of Blockade are so under. I don't know if undertuned is the word, is maybe not fully designed or thought through, or maybe it's kind of, you have to think to yourself, maybe it's something like Antorus, like the amount of stuff that Method and us were doing to get extra gear. Maybe that was so much more gear than they anticipated other guilds having, similar to Antorus, where the first, like the big Antorus being as much of a pushover as it was on day one was logical because we actually had 8 more eye level than the guilds that they were selling the game to, and on a larger number. And that kind of makes sense because those bosses, or those 4th and 5th bosses, can't be hard for Method and Limit. Well, at the time, we were nobodies then, and still now. Like Exorcist or whoever, they could not be hard for those guilds, because then it would make a lot of people quit the game. It'd be too difficult.
Yeah.
Maybe that's kind of the same thing, but I mean, what I use a lot of my stream for is talking to people and figuring out like what people, other parts of the WoW community, people that are 1 out of 8 Mythic, people or 9 Mythic, people who are still in Heroic, what they think of this raid, and everyone universally thinks it's undertuned and didn't reach its potential. So I think that's right around the mark of where it is.
Okay. I want to go a little bit into the pre-raid strategizing you guys do, specifically on comps. I took notice of this because I'm now maining a prop pally. You guys had prop pallies for a lot of your first kills the first week. Was there a specific reason for that? Was that just prep for Jaina for the immunities? What was going on there?
So until you get to a difficult boss, you just bring whatever characters you want to get gear for the last boss. That's like generally how stuff goes. I think if we were to go back, we would do more gearing even on Blockade and Mechatork because they were also easy bosses, but you don't really know that going in. And like when you're about to kill it, you're like, oh, let's swap our comp completely for more loot for a later boss. That may not be time efficient. But yeah, we brought double pally because we think going into any situation, literally any boss, if you know nothing about it, you don't know how hard it hits, you don't know what the mechanics do, you go into a double prop pally as your tank comp more than any other tank comp. And I don't even think that decision is close. There's a couple reasons why. The utility that Paladin brings compared to other tanks is not even in the same ballpark. And on top of that, they do a ridiculous amount of raid healing, and they possess 2 spells that are the biggest triage heal that any healer even possesses. That is not something like Lay on Hands or that one Holy Priest heal. It's on a shorter cooldown. I don't know the name of it. And you have that on 2 people. That's why we've invested, better players into tanks. We don't like, that's why we had Darky tank. We moved on from our previous tank because a lot of people, not high end guilds, because it's very important. And when you're in a high end guild, that you just have the 20 best players in possible. But you can, and you saw this more with Darky. Like Darky's one of the best players that plays this game, hands down. And you can see how much of an impact he can have on your guild from a tank perspective than you can as a DPS. And it's huge. That class is definitely not good at tanking. It's not even remotely on the same level as Warrior, as Monk, as DK in the right scenarios with a lot of magic damage, which there really wasn't a lot of this year.
Splat. Come on now. Prop alleys never just magically go splat without expecting it.
Oh no, yeah, no. Paladins are bad. Like the one thing about paladins that are not good, like they're not good at tanking anything. So like they're not good at like receiving damage that other people like. Like the whole tank role is not good for prop paladins. But we just make a bet on we're good enough players where it's not going to matter, and we will die at a shorter clip than if we were playing like better classes or were other players. And we just bank on making it work and using the class's utility and making it work that way, because paladin's utility is just so much higher than any other tank can provide, that we don't ever really look at how much little damage a tank takes when you're going into progression. Now obviously, like, we made the swap from double paladin to paladin warrior and then to paladin monk on Jaina for the exact reason of they turned that boss on, like they flipped the switch and she started just destroying tanks. And when you do that, double paladin is not, I mean, it's definitely doable, and it was doable, and we were in P3 with double paladin, but it's not consistent. Like, you can throw in one class like a monk on a fight like that, or a warrior, and you can carry so hard that you can make whatever other class work. It's definitely not a fight where you need two tanky tanks, but you definitely need one. But that's coming from a fight where it's the most tanky in years. There's not a fight in my recent memory where you couldn't run double paladin and it would have been fine, and the benefits that you gain to your raid would outweigh the damage reduction that they have.
Yeah. So, for people that aren't familiar with prop pallies, what exactly is the utility they bring? The healing and the judgment stuff. Can you explain that for people?
Yeah, sure. So they have a 3-minute unused spell wording, which is basically like Hand of or Blessing of Protection, but for magic abilities. This works on most things in raids. It doesn't work exactly like an immunity. Like, you can't give it to people and it removes their debuffs, similar to Bubble, but it will prevent the application of almost every magical ability in the game. This is probably the singular most OP thing about them, and you can definitely see it on fights like Jaina. Prevents you from getting blocked. You can run away from the group and do things. There's a million applications, and you can give it to anyone. Number 2, Hand of the Protector. You never spec anything but Hand of the Protector unless it's in like severe scenarios like Jaina, where we have him just go bubble taunt for the end in the last phase. Kind of makes sense. To die at a specific time. There's really no other thing where you can die at a very specific time, except when you know that when that runs out, if you don't press anything, you will die. And then on top of that, I think all of that separate, the other half of it is Hand of the Protector is just the most insane heal. It's up so often, and it's more than any healer can do, and you very frequently don't need to use it on yourself or another tank, and I would argue that having two good prop paladins in your raid at the very least equals an extra healer, as far as their actual HPS, and then also on top of that, their actual functional triage healing of people that die on certain counters. So like, look at Vectus, for example. You have 3 Omega Vectors out that are always needing, or 4 that always need to be watched, right? A paladin can almost take care, each prop paladin could probably take care of one. They could dump their entire mana bar with Flash of Light, which is another underrated thing that you're not considering. When you're not tanking, you can dump your entire mana bar with Flash of Light, which does more healing than a healer's single target heal can do on its own, and it's for free. And then on top of that, you have Hand of Protector, which is like 3 times that for free. And then obviously Lay on Hands, Freedom, Hand of Sacrifice, a 2-minute external, and typically it's a little bit better than a healer sack because it's like going onto a tank who's potentially not tanking. So it's a really common 30%, which is like a giant number. Like a 30% external gets you through anything you want to external anyone through. We almost never use externals for tanks. They're almost exclusively for raid mechanics. And yeah, it just gives you more options that way. And I mean, you could name 2 of the 10 things that I just named to you, and they would be more than any other tank has access to. And then there's 5 more. And the Aegis of Light as well, if you run out of the Judgment Talent. Oh, the last thing I didn't remember is, while they do have the spot healing of Flash of Light and Hand Protector, they also have Aegis of Light, which is a Holy Paladin tier 1 trait on Azerite gear that works for Prot and is much more potent. And also that stacks with the Judgment of Light talent. So basically, if you have 10 people stacked around the boss, which you are, like Jaina, which is why we did prop pallies specific for this tier, it does about 40k raid healing every time you hit the Judgment button, which is, if you ever play a Paladin, it's very frequent.
Yeah. It's constant. It's like every third button you press.
And then you obviously have a raid cooldown that you could swap in. You also can stack 3 tier 3s of the bubble trait and give almost the entire raid and absorb for about as much as a health pot is. You can go for a while.
Yeah, Prot's pretty fun. I like it.
But to be mentioned, if you're like a newer tank, like don't play that class. You will get your brains beat in. That class sucks. Like it's really bad to tank on, but it does other good stuff.
Yeah, yeah, I know that firsthand. I tank with a brewmaster, and he takes no damage. I just go fucking splat. There's nothing you can do about it. It's fun. What other comp stuff did you guys do? I know that obviously Method for Jaina, they had the 2 disc priests. Was there any other class in the prop alleys you were really looking to try to stack or focus on for Jaina?
Mages. This is another thing where you look at the US first reset versus the EU one. We were halfway through the raid on Mythic, gearing 4 mages before they made the change on Jaina, where blinking, ice blocking, bubbling, icebound fortitude, all that stuff, that didn't get you out of blocks anymore, which was the only reason we were stacking mages. And yeah, so like we were planning on stacking the hell out of that fight, because anytime you're not stacking classes on a fight, in my opinion, you're a little unprepared on what you thought would be good. You made a bad call, I guess, because if you're just running a vanilla like this is this and this, unless you're just because like you don't really run comps at this level, at the method and limits level of playing, you don't run comps for the whole raid. You run comps for the last boss and you make it work for the whole raid, because you can generally kill the first whatever bosses in a raid besides the last one. Besides by just outplaying it. And which is why you saw all of our strats be so ridiculous. We actually completely YOLO'd the first bit of the raid. There was very little preparation because there didn't need to be. We looked a lot into blockade, which is kind of unfortunate, but yeah. Basically that we were hard stuck on the Rep Pally. We thought Rep Pally would be the best class for that fight. Definitely ended up being the case. That class was so insane in the last phase. Their utility and the ability to use an immunity was super huge, and then also they were able to like taunt the boss at some points and like reset stacks, and they made this stuff harder, as well as double DH. Double DH was a good call as well. I think that was like one thing we did. We didn't run as many. Also, like I think a big difference between comps that people looked at us and Method was double lock. We actually ran double lock for the majority of progression on that fight. We just ran 1 lock for the kill because, as Tagzz probably mentioned before, and he's had in his write-up, we barely raided on the day we killed it. We basically were just waiting for 20 people to get on, and then we logged on and killed it, and he was one of those people that was AFK. As far as healing comp, I'll let Tagzz kind of go into that, but our strat's a little different than Method's. We did not need the Disc Priest for damage with our strat. Our strat required more healing, therefore we ran like a Resto Druid to really carry the intermission, and then the shamans and the shaman and the monk just owned that phase. Then we had like a Giga Trank at the end to like top everyone off. That's the reason we ran our healing comp, but I can let him get a little more into that.
Yeah, I think going into the tier, we thought, obviously Disc would be good and Shamans would be good, which wasn't necessarily aligned with everyone else. So basically, we had 2 Shamans, 2 Discs, 2 Monks available to us. What ended up happening in Heroic Week, though, was one of our kind of swing healers, Jeeth, he had a Monk and a Disc. His Priest just got no gear like, at all. So in Mythic, we really only had 1 Disc option, which was Siori, who ended up playing Shaman. So Siori, of course, was our Shaman and Disc swing. So the reason we didn't have a Priest on Jaina, which is definitely odd if you compare it to every other guild killing Jaina, was because it was, to us, just a choice between double Shaman and Shaman Disc, because the other Disc we had just got really screwed over. So we had probably just as what every other guild had, and we had a pretty widespread array of available healers, but it ended up being just the choice between double Shaman and 1 Disc. For our strat, we didn't really need that much damage. Like the, Disc brought 20k. If Method's Discs did 20k damage in the last phase, which was great. Huge part of their strat. With our Lust, we didn't really need that. We just needed more healing. So obviously Disc does good healing too, but it wasn't. I think double Shaman is more of a hard requirement for Jaina than as many Discs as possible. I think double Shaman is just about the best you can do, and then Priest is obviously good, but having 2 Spirit Links and 2 Ankh Totems was the most important thing for us. And like Max said, we just needed throughput. We didn't really need the damage, and obviously we didn't kill it the first week, but from what we could see in our math and all that, we totally had it. And on our kill, it looked like we barely got it. It was a pretty bad pull actually. Damage wise, we were behind what we were on some of our better pulls. So obviously
And we had
method.
someone hard across
Yeah.
the raid at
Yeah,
17
that too.
max to
Yeah,
20.
we would
Yeah.
have we would have
That's what blocked
we would have
everyone.
lived for like 10 more seconds if not for that Heart of Frost, and we probably would have killed Jaina with everyone alive. Like Method's kill was incredibly clean, and they probably could have gone like
Yeah,
20
that kill
more
was
seconds
insane.
on that.
Yeah,
It was
that kill
insane.
was insane.
Yeah.
Obviously ours wasn't like that, but it could have the week before. We just didn't execute.
Like I
really.
think they might have been able to like kill the boss. Like
Yeah,
actually
they
kill the boss.
they would have been going for a
It
while.
would have been very
Yeah.
close. Like that's actually crazy.
What were they at? 14 when they killed it? 14.
Yeah,
saves?
honestly, I think
They-
that's
they would have
something.
been
was
going for a
clean.
while. They
I think
owned that.
I think that's something that can't be understated. Like we definitely like if we have very limited like our vision as a guild is, and you kind of have to do this in the US, is we keep whatever good players we have. Like I'm not, and I don't mean good. I mean like, they're good in this guild. They're insanely good players. If you find players like that and they have real life obligations and they can only play one character, and like you keep that person, because there is a very close to a 0% chance that you'll be able to recruit a better healer in the US that will play that and other classes. So that's kind of like an issue with our guild, is our only disc priest options are Jeeth and Siori. Refute, we would do anything to have Refute keep playing here. He's so good. But he only plays the Resto Druid, and he can barely ever be here except for progression, which, like I said, you take that a million times a week because you cannot recruit someone better than him, or we've tried for years and can't. That can play other stuff or has time to play other stuff. And that like kind of leads, because like you had to run like Shaman was such a carry on that fight for so many reasons, not only in their throughput and the type of healing and how stacked you were, but also Spirit Link is just the most insane button on that fight. In fact, I think you could almost have a separate topic entirely based on how big of a script was flipped between Shaman in the last raid and Shaman in this one. And one of the major proponents of that is Spirit Link sucked in Uldir, and Spirit Link was insane on so many bosses in this raid. That is such a polarizing button that sometimes it is just the best button in the game, and sometimes it's worthless. And that kind of determines the viability of their class, although they're insane throughput healers right now. But like, just in general, yeah, that was like one thing. But like, we would have used Disc. Disc is too valuable in raid. It does anytime there's a damage check, which, if you look at last bosses, the only boss I can think of that didn't really have a damage check was like Kill Jaden. It was just like all mechanics. Like if you got to the last phase, everyone alive, and you lived, you killed. There wasn't like you need a disc priest to meet this metric thing. But disc has just been so good for so long, because it's like when they had the concept drawn of the rework of that class, it was, oh, well, we want them to be X% of a DPS, but also a healer. And it's like a hybrid class, and you do a little less healing. They got the hybrid DPS part right. They do a decent amount of DPS that is definitely not irrelevant. I think if you ran one disc in our raid comp, it would have been like 8% more raid damage or something. That's significant. However, they do so much healing. It's just so valuable. It's just the most efficient class you can have in your raid, with how much damage and how much healing you get, and they have a barrier. So yeah, it's definitely something. I think if we had more options with who could play what and how people's availability, I think we would have had a disc priest on the fight. I think, but it wasn't necessary towards reaching our goal of what our strat was. Like it wasn't like something we really made a mistake on, but it's something that we're constantly trying to improve.
Okay. As far as the world first race goes in general, if you guys could, sit Ian Hazzikostas down and say, we want you to make these changes, make the world first race better, what would they be? What would you tell him you want done from Blizzard?
Global release for sure. That'd be number
Attorney
one.
Realm.
I don't
Attorney-
think that'll ever happen.
I don't
but
think
that
it'll
would be
ever
good.
happen. Yeah, what they mean by that is for sure releasing the raids at the same time. I mean, it's so good for everything, because there are huge advantages to starting first, but there are also disadvantages. And regardless of that, the talking point is annoying, because obviously if you have like super big fanboys of Method, that's just ammunition for them, even though they don't understand it at all. And then also, just in general, it is an advantage nonetheless while being a small one. And it will potentially huge if it's around a reset. Like, how would you argue this? What if Method didn't kill it for 5 more hours and we re-cleared and we're like super pumped and we killed the boss? And then they re-cleared it the next day and then they killed the boss. So basically the boss required a reset of gear, but we literally just got it first. Like, how the fuck do you deal with that? That is a situation that is actually not uncommon, and it could happen. And that would like blow everything up. And I don't know why they don't get ahead of that, because that would just be miserable for everyone, including us. Actually, probably mostly us. And I mean the raid release, and then what THC's mentioning about the land, I'll let Tagzz talk in a second, but the land thing is we don't want to have to do all this bullshit farming and split runs and community feeding chalk and other things. Like, we just want to log on our characters, get no achievements from it, don't give a fuck, stream it, put us on a tournament realm, give us access to whatever character we want with all the same gear, and let us just do it like that. And that would be the best possible thing. And they could sponsor it, whatever, or not sponsor it, but just make that available. And that would be, oh my God, that'd be the best.
I don't know, man. I did some islands today, and someone complimented my title.
Yeah, it matters.
Why were you doing islands?
I needed to get my cap for the week. I gotta do it sometime. I'm preparing for the next raid.
Isn't it getting like hard capped at 50 or something?
Well, if you get there soon, you don't have to do it later.
PhD needs clinical help.
Yeah, he's got a problem.
Yeah, like there. Okay. What about getting more guilds involved? Do you think there's anything Blizzard could do to try to get more than just U Method and Exorcist to actually have a chance at World First? Or is it just like there's only so many people that can play at that level and devote the time to it?
I think it's the latter for sure. I mean, Exorcist just got beat by the Chinese Guild Alpha, so it would be those three, I suppose. Because Alpha gets their reset on Thursday, so honestly, they weren't that far behind. They started 2 days later.
I didn't see Alpha kill it. They just killed it today?
Yeah, the Chinese API doesn't work.
Oh, cool. Congrats for them.
But no, I mean, we might not be able to do it every tier. So the pool of players that can do it, that want to do it, obviously there's tons of people that can do it, but people that can do it, that want to do it, and that are good enough to do it, very small pool. So, obviously it's only worth it to raid as much as you do if you have a shot. So, any old guild that's, we can take time off work, we have the time to do it. If they're not going to put in all the effort and have players that will play well when they're tired and everything, if they don't have every aspect, it's just not worth it for them. You don't want a day raid for World 10th, like, it doesn't make sense. So there's nothing Blizzard can really do with that. It's like if Method got worse, then there would be less of a barrier of entry. But the only reason you really want to go for World First is if you think you can beat Method, and a lot of guilds can't. Obviously, we didn't even this time. So that's all it comes down to, I think. Because you don't want to raid a shit ton to lose.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I don't see any more questions coming in, so if it's okay with you guys, I want to swap gears a little bit and go to your kill video for Jaina, and kind of have you guys give some insight onto what's going on, some of the thought processes behind your different strats for the different phases, what made them hard, what were the difficulties for you guys progressing through different phases, and how you got through all of it. So give me a second here. Let's see if I can actually press the right buttons. Okay, and start. I don't know if the sound is going to come through. There we go. So whenever you want me to pause it, just let me know.
Beware, beware.
By the way, your editor actually did a really good job with this.
mean, yeah, if the
Plus,
healers are
everyone
if the
is
healers are
fine.
like, no matter what, if it's clean, we can heal through it, no problem. We will never die. It won't set us back. Then it doesn't die, and we just get it out. That's fine. If the healers feel that way.
The one thing
It's
is,
just
I
about
wish
not getting knocked.
people would
Getting
see in
knocked,
our
yeah.
guild. I think that would be the biggest thing that they would be watching our guild training. Is our raid atmosphere is just exactly what you see in this video, and the times where you can hear us, we're just joking. It's just that actually 100% of it. It's so good.
Yeah, I saw a couple clips around the internet of like attempted murder with the freezing blast or whatever it is in Phase 1, knocking people off the boats and shit.
And the good old gotta make sure you gingy people in ice blocks.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Big gingy.
Yeah, there's not really much to talk about though in Phase 1. Besides, if you're a guild that's trying to, starting on this boss, I think the most important part is just understanding how the ballistas work. Because the only real problem in Phase 1 is if you get just the entire boat covered with. But other than that, Phase 1's pretty easy. It's just all about making it consistent. Getting past it for like the first time should happen on when you're very early.
The one
Sometimes
thing
you get
that,
bad RNG though.
The one thing I was noticing is
No
that
gingy, no gingy.
if I remember right, Method was emceeing the ads off the side. Were you guys doing that too?
Yeah.
We started.
We didn't start doing that. We started off leaving them up for multi-dotting and all that good stuff.
Also, someone lied. Like, we were like, we should just MC them off like on heroic, because we were like P1 was never something we gave any more than like 2 bits of thought to. But
Wait, can you not
some
spawn off of
priests
Divine
said
Shield
they're
too?
immune to MC on Mythic, and then we just didn't do it. And then eventually we found out that that wasn't true, and then
They just
we
didn't want
yeah.
to do it, I
Recently
bet.
applied taunt.
Yeah,
But
I
we,
think
we don't remember who it was.
Good thing THC Priest wasn't in the raid.
It was probably Kevin.
yeah.
So,
That
how,
guy's just going for the parse.
do you guys have like weak aura programmers in the guild? Someone that's able to make a weak aura to track the stacks going on here, or I guess her power.
We can make a elementary level weak aura
Yeah, blocks.
You don't
if
have any.
given enough time.
You don't have like any high level programmers.
We're gonna have to stop.
No.
In fact, almost comically the exact opposite of.
Yeah, I make the most weak auras along with it used to be Kenny Loggins when he was still in the, but they're not that good and will frequently like crash your game. Is the ongoing joke.
Crash your game. I'm sure that's good for
Oh, yeah.
free.
And then they delete
It's
themselves.
happened multiple times actually.
It's like a self-destruct. You install them, you use them, and then they just crash your game and uninstall.
Us pushing at
Yeah,
a time frame like
okay.
this is so much more helpful.
Sure, that never
That's
caused any
actually real.
problems.
All of less stacks.
That's real.
It-
We had an Elisand weak aura that crashed your game when the boss.
So,
And then when you came back into the game, it was gone.
Really upset that.
So don't know what happened with that, but
what was the deal with
and then I was
this
listening
phase?
to
Because I
it
know
say
that
alive.
Blizzard said it was a bug at one point that it would give you 4 stacks coming out of that little RP thing instead of you starting at 1.
That's
Did you guys kind of watch that go
Yeah.
from 1 to
I
4?
feel like that's a
no. So what we
mysterious
we actually heard from them that it was the fix was to prevent you from running off the edge in the cinematic. So they tweaked how the cinematic worked. And what it ended up being was you just gained 4 stacks during the cinematic when you didn't use it. So
Okay.
that was a bug for about 24 hours.
break them all out.
It was
You don't
like
need the
at the
damages,
end
just
of
break
one
them
of our
all out.
raids, and
Fade
then
it
it was
away,
still
fade it
there
away,
in the
fade it away,
morning, and then they fixed it
fine.
like mid.
Break them out. Break them out. Break them out.
Okay.
And that's pretty bad. That was a bad one. We were able to get through it by just sky stepping the inner. Like the whole raid would just sky step to kind of make up for essentially lost time, like where we would do the intermission faster, so we'd have less stacks in the end, and that kind of canceled out
Okay.
the 4 extra we got. So in the end, we would have about the same amount of stack.
Okay. Those images that you have to break to get out of the intermission, are they always in the same spot, or were they just kind of random around the room?
Yeah,
The
they have
images were
predetermined.
relatively consistent in their placing, but then the boss was random.
Okay.
So you'd have like the boss like close on the right side or close on the left side or like kind of near the middle. So you'd always have like between 1 and 3 or even 5 in to the left or right of the boss. So that was kind of the variability, and that's usually how we called it. We had a Moonkin. I don't even know how he was doing it, but he was tracking where the images, and he would say like second on the left or third on the left, that sort of thing, and we'd send the fastest classes like demon hunters and everyone like that on the side with more images.
How is he
'Cause
doing
they
that?
come through.
What
I
what
don't-
did
it-
You
well,
Boomkins
so
track
have?
humanoids, I think, when
Hunters
you're in
could
cat
do it
form.
too, something like that. Yeah, he had some
Oh, okay.
tracking ability built into Druid.
That's
Yeah,
fair.
it was a
Okay.
really unlucky proc there.
That is quite strange. Doesn't need to be broken. Just make sure.
How
the one
often
on
did
top
you
of it-
nuke people with the glacial rays here?
There was a fair
You
bit
can't-
of it.
Do you mean
It's-
hitting people that were in a
we can
block?
Yeah.
We just chill
It
here,
actually
go across,
seemed
go
like the
across,
boss
break it,
preferred
go
to
across,
target people in
run
blocks,
across, run
from what
across.
we could tell.
Keep going.
And that's not a joke. I'm pretty sure that was actually a thing.
This is a
Or
leap.
we're just super, super
Yeah.
unlucky.
in the fucking-
This right here
that's in
is
the
probably
kill
my
video,
favorite
too.
thing that happens, that
Crazy.
leap.
Run through.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah,
just
you
so
have to,
cool to watch.
Yeah, it's
Such
fucking
a pro
crazy
play.
That was actually one
That's
of the things we
crazy.
didn't figure out, what we just did there. We didn't necessarily know that immediately. We would get cut off by the ice fall, and how we got around that was we would just wait until the barrel was broken, and you could run through the ice fall with the barrel debugged.
Well,
Oh, and
So
it wouldn't-
early on in our phase
Oh, yeah,
2,
so
we
it
would
wouldn't
get
give you
cut off and
stacks.
just think, yeah. So we would either gateway over the ice fall, or just kind of roll over. Like if we had 2 in a row where we still had the gateway debuff, we just were like, ah, damn, bad RNG. But then we kind of realized you could do that.
Okay.
The
Now,
the cold ground didn't do anything special. It just made you get stacks faster, but the fire made you immune. So,
At this point of
Okay.
fight, the major thing that's different in
Boss,
what
please block.
we did and what Method is. Method lusted here and put a lot of DPS on the boss. I don't know what strat a lot of people are going to do.
All you gotta
You
do
can
is
probably
just
just
I
pause
wouldn't-
it.
I-
chill, ready to chill, and just
Oh yeah, you can
range.
pause here.
Don't
So what we
worry
did
about
is we did not lust, and we ended up lusting one person, so she instantly blocked when the phase was over. And then we lusted. Basically, we were able to lust the entire raid on the boss in the last phase for the burn. This resulted in more throughput. Like it was higher. It was more healing. It was, basically 20 seconds off. But the entire raid having lust is more than that as far as like an actual time to kill. But I don't know what strat guilds are going to use if you're going to re-kill this boss, and I don't know what to suggest them. My only thing is I would suggest guilds not to use ours just because of inconsistency. And what I mean by that is sometimes when you kick the boss in this strat, she just doesn't block. Like one person will have lust and she has some mechanism. We actually found out by putting the person in group 1, it has a higher chance of her actually recognizing it. But there's a chance when you get to this phase that she just won't block and you instantly wipe over. Probably at some points it was like 20 to 30% of our pulls in this phase. And that's pretty bad. But it is a like, if you do like the first bit of the phase right, you will do more damage in this strat. There's no denying that. But it's especially with higher gear because you'll already be able to put ranged on the wall without lust on the ice wall. We were kind of doing that in ours.
okay.
But yeah, that's like the major fundamental difference is that we have our hunter block the boss, and then all of us have sated so we don't get the lust, and then we lust right after it.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure the exact timing, but with our strat, from when the boss leaves the ice block to when you're guaranteed to wipe, it was about a minute. So 39 seconds of those is spent with lust. I think the timing for method strat is a little bit more time, and you start out with less stacks, but you don't have that lust. So what we kind of figured is since you're starting Jaina with way more stacks, having waited, it's essentially a higher healing requirement, but a lower damage requirement. That's how we would compare the two strats.
Okay. You guys transferred most of your characters to trolls here, right?
Hmm.
Was that just because there's the little bit of downtime when you're hitting the wall where you don't gain stacks, and with trolls it could fall off?
Yes.
So no, actually, everyone's stacks drop when you hit the wall. As long as you don't mess up the push, you basically just
right
need to
after
push
that.
it after a
Okay.
blizzard or the full power storm or whatever that ability is called. When you lose all the vision, if you push the boss after that, every single race will drop their stacks at the wall.
Okay.
But then as soon as you break the wall, you start gaining stacks again at about a 15-second clip. I don't know why. It goes from 6 seconds in P2 to 0 on the wall to 15 seconds when you're running up to Nathanos to 10 seconds in the last phase. I don't know why it keeps changing. But
Interesting.
when it's every 15 seconds on Nathanos, what you do is you get the debuff low enough, and then you push Nathanos going into phase 3, and it'll actually reset the timer. So the timing wasn't like this all the
Okay.
time, but essentially what you're doing is you're letting that 15-second timer count down, you push, and then it'll reset to the 10-second phase 3 timer. And that gap is large enough for trolls to drop their debuffs, but not for other races too.
Interesting.
It netted you 20 extra seconds in the last phase,
Yeah,
basically.
you would drop. Well, for method, they were really only dropping one stack because they pushed Nathanos like instant, which is good for their strat. But for us, we would wait for an extra stack, so our non-trolls would have 2 stacks in the last phase. So every troll is dropping 2 stacks, which, like THT has said, is essentially 20 extra seconds.
Okay. Anything else about this phase, or you want me to hit play?
I think that covers it. Yeah. So then you're going to see shortly here is Dosu runs out, and he's the only one in the raid lusted. So he's going to trigger the boss to ice block in.
Yeah, he was doing the same thing that Genji did, but he
Mhm.
would have lust, so she would stay blocked.
Yep, and then we basically just spent our time running over to the boss. In the past when we were working on this boss, we were still blocking her right here, but we would use that time to kill the elemental or break out people from blocks or do something. But we always thought that blocking the boss to start the phase was, most of our strats generally did that. We pretty much did that the whole time, except for when we first got here. We tried burning the boss outright with no lust, no ice blocks, that sort of thing.
Okay, so for the Ellie, I know that if you kill it, it splits into two. Does it split again? Because
No.
never saw Method go further than that.
It doesn't, but in the end, especially when they reverted that bug fix that it wasn't casting the Frost Nova, when they reverted that, it was definitely just ignore it. Like all of its abilities it does are you can deal with, and they don't give you guaranteed stacks. Nothing it does gives you guaranteed stacks, so you just ignore it, no matter what strat.
Just
We
has
tried
way too much
killing it.
health.
Yeah, we tried killing it because it would be easier to deal with, but really in the end, everything it does is avoidable. So whatever strat you do, you should ignore it because it's possible to ignore.
Okay, how many times did the tank with the Ellie kill the raid with his frontal?
Well, the Ellie doesn't do a frontal, but what we actually noticed was that the boss seemed to cleave anytime a tank died. Like, I think Darky mentioned this, that for whatever reason, the way that the boss casts on this boss, it's kind of weird. It doesn't use the same timer. It kind of queues up abilities. And what Darky noticed was no matter what, if a tank died, the next cast that the boss would do would be the cleave, pretty much every time.
Okay.
Which is just like ruthless from a designer standpoint, because when that happens, the tank dies, and another tank was like ice blocked or something, you just die. The raid just wipes.
Yeah, that's actually kind of heartless. Um, so you guys were saying that something happened here and you blocked the whole raid at the end.
Yeah,
Heart of
so
Frost.
Heart of Frost actually cleaved the raid when he was going out, or someone with Heart of Frost cleaved the raid as they were going out, which gave an extra stack to everyone. So we were supposed to kill the boss at 19 stacks, but instead we all hit 20 stacks and ice blocked, and then obviously Lip finished it in a boss. But it would have probably looked like everyone was to be super low health, but not ice blocks when the boss died if that didn't happen.
Okay. So anything else about the fight that you guys want to talk about? Anything else about Jaina?
I think the only thing is that we had that there was another thing major changed in this fight that was never shown on the method stream because they were doing a different strat. Was you're actually able to block her at specific times and skip certain abilities. And they eventually changed that like mid progression. So if you were to like look at this exact strat that we were doing, where we block her at the beginning and then we pull her in Lust again, she would have never done that first frozen orb on Sunday. It was Sunday, right? When they fixed that, it was Sunday night, I think. When we were sleeping, they fixed that.
Yeah.
So you would have actually even had 20 more seconds in that phase by blocking her initially by never having her thing. But then
Okay.
they changed that as well.
So how many different changes did you guys have to go through?
Well, some of it was just natural flow of progression because you never really set on something until you try it. So the first thing we did when we broke through the wall was we were like, all right, let's just kill the Ellie and see how much damage the Ellie has. And then we tried to kill the Ellie and we were like, let's not kick the boss. But then you found out that in Mythic, she shoots those arcane barrages like a million times faster than Heroic. So our ranged are running around helplessly as we're trying to kill this ad for the first time. And then we're like, man, this thing has got some HP. Like, I don't know if we're gonna be able to like. And then I want to say I don't even know if we tried to kill the Ellie again after that. I think we were just like, that thing has so much health that we saw it split and we were like, let's see what the health the little guys have. And then we found out from spell IDs that it doesn't split past 2. So we're like, we calculated up the health and this is more than half of Jaina's total health in that phase just to kill this ad. So there's some efficiency in it where you could lust on the wall and then still have lust for the Ellie or just lust the Ellie. You know, because I think in the design of this fight, they clearly wanted you to find a time to lust in this fight that was not on Jaina with the way that they designed her.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, so that was like, that's why they gave it a much, but it has way too much health. Like,
Well, that's what actually was weird is in her original form, she would skip abilities in her ice blocks. So after seeing that, it actually seemed to me that
it was
they
intended.
wanted you to find a nice spot to ice block her in the last phase, like some sort of wombo combo, and that's actually what we found. Like the Siege Breaker, Frost Orb, all these things happening at once to us, who were like, well, why don't we just ice block her there? If she skips them, that'd be great. And that to me sounds like something the designer of the fight might have intended, but then they just changed that. So I have no idea.
Okay.
It seems like that's what a fight designer usually wants you to do, is if you have some way of stopping the boss from doing something, or like for example on Lei Shen, you could disable one of his abilities. Lei Shen is looked at as an incredible fight, and that's one of the mechanics that was there. You could disable one of his 4 abilities, so it was up to the person doing the fight. I'll disable whichever one's best to disable at that certain situation. That's good fight design.
Yeah.
So the fact that they changed it on Jaina is just really weird to me. Obviously, we're not doing the fight. Nobody's ever going to do the fight the way that Blizzard intended it. After, every guild from this point on is going to do the same strat and burn the boss because you can. It seems like that's what they probably wanted you to do, is ice block the boss at some time that it worked for you. But then they changed that. So I have no idea.
Did you guys do any experimenting with different groups to get frozen in phase 3? Like have a group of 5 or 8 get frozen and break them out? What made you not want to go with that?
It was just too many things had to be perfectly lined up. Like our strat that we were, the strat that we felt most confident in involved ice blocking a group of melee in the transition, and then ice blocking the whole raid later, and having those melee that had been ice blocked break. That was the that seemed like maybe close to what Blizzard envisioned for the fight, but it was just too. Everything had to go perfectly right for that to happen. Namely, the storm timing of when you push the boss in phase two had to line up perfectly. And having done phase two like 400 times, the timing in phase two changes all the time. Not like the timing of abilities, but sometimes your phase two is just really good and you push the boss really fast. So
Okay.
the strat to ice block the people required a very precise timing. Then you would just sit there waiting, which of course is fine. You know, you can do that, but it wasn't something that could be consistent. Everything had to go right for our, you know, envisioned
Okay.
strategy to actually work.
Okay, so there just wasn't like a safe
Not
time to
really.
do that.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else you guys have about the tier, about Jaina? Anything else that's gone on or limit going forward? No?
I mean,
Just gonna all
unless
sit
Max
here and
wants
look
to say
pretty?
something.
I mean, again, we haven't really talked at all. I mean, we're definitely not going anywhere. Like, I think that's one thing that obviously people that want us to not do well, so fans of a certain organization or other people like that are, you know, the kind of people you see saying all the crazy shit. We're not gonna like disband. Like I think it's so crazy how different of an opinion people have about the guild. Like pretty much anything could happen and we would still be around. Like there's no like there's very little ego, there's no beef, there's no people that would be pitted against each other. It's all just a bunch of dudes, super like huge nerds just having fun. That is our guild in every way, shape, or form. And it's very a specific culture, but one that people get in and instantly your family. And then that's not something that coming in second or third or 10th or well, okay, if we got 10th rating our hours, some shit would be happen. That would yeah, we'd probably something would happen. But
That'd be
you know,
bad.
unless
We'd get the Glocks.
unless like a bunch of unless like a bunch of people die or something, like nothing's gonna happen with the guild, and we'll always be playing at a decently high level. So yeah, I don't know. As far as anything else, if anyone has any like sponsorship stuff they want to or business opportunities, can definitely contact us. So as far as that, but yeah,
Okay. Well, less tags, TH, do you guys have anything else to add?
I like that I got to play something other than Affliction, because you know it's been like 3 tiers of Affliction dominance. I got to play Destruction, much better spec,
Throw
Would
chaos
it
bolts at
recommend?
everything.
and just not be worthless whenever an ad spawns. That's great.
Yeah, if we're speaking about our classes, mine is not very good right now. Kind of.
it's good and
Well,
it's not good.
Holy Pally is not. It's not bad enough where you shouldn't bring it. Like anyone out there shouldn't be discouraged that the top guilds are not using Holy Pallies because they're totally using. But they're not in the best.
They just don't do enough throughput. It's just that simple. Like they bring other things. They actually haven't like having an immunity on a healer class is very unique. That's not capable with any other healer. They have and they also have like they're really tanky and they have really good spot healing that other classes don't have a lot of. Very few do. Monks do. Um, but man, they just don't do enough. Like when you're stacked, just raid healing. They just don't do enough of that outside of their
Well,
wings.
even with that, like their best cooldown randomly heals 3 people over and over. It's the melee wings ability, and it randomly heals 3 people every time you attack. Essentially, that's not a very good number for a 20-man raid. Like obviously you can do 3 things back to back and then 3 globals, you've healed 9 people. But that's still way less than, you know, any other healer cooldown that usually ticks on like 6 people at once.
Yeah.
Devo is the one thing for Paladin that doesn't get enough credit, because I think right.
The thing with Devo is when you're using Devo, generally the amount of damage that it's reducing over the course of a fight will bring it to the level of the other healers or even above them. Like if you look at like Warcraft logs, parses, Pally is way below every other healer. But if you take damage reduction and Devo into account, it's much more even. So it's still fine, just their actual raid cooldown. And that's why we sat Pally on Jaina, is you just need pure throughput in the last phase. And melee wings is nothing compared to like a trank.
Yeah.
That's all it is. Like Aura of Sacrifice in the past was great. You could lay on hands the whole raid. And that's why Pallies were like the best healer in Legion. But, you know, it's not the same anymore. Because in WoD it was the same. Pallies didn't really have a good healer cooldown, but it was wings. It was the old wings, and you could pick who you're healing. So right now it's like a bad in between. In Legion, your raid cooldown healed everyone. In WoD, your raid cooldown healed no one, just specific people. Now it's specific people, but you don't get to choose. That's why it's in a worse spot right now. I think, at least.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of people not happy with their classes right now. Seems to be one
shamans.
Seems to be one of the themes of this expansion. I know I had to temporarily retire my 14-year-old hunter, so what can you do? Well, unless you guys have anything else to add, I guess thank you for coming. This was great, and I got some good information. Hope everyone watching enjoyed. And we'll look to do this after the next raid.
Cool.
So, thanks
I'm
everyone.
still waiting for Shadow Priest nerfs.
Never. Let them have their glory for like a little bit.
They're just 10% ahead of everyone, man.
It's fine. Next tier they
And then
won't
Warlocks are top 3.
be. Next time they won't be
Why
viable.
do you have soundproofing pads?
Because my walls are super thin. Like really thin.
I remember when I yelled in the kill video, my mom came in the room about 10 seconds after, and she was like, "Why are you yelling?" And
No
I just told her, you know me.
It's because that video games thing that you think is weird. That's all.
You know me.
Yeah.
No, but yeah, my walls are super thin here. I need to move. That's all I'll say about it.
Okay, well, on that note, thank you everyone for watching. Appreciate it. We will see you next here. I'm crzypck. Thank you to Tagzz, THD, and Max. And have a great night.
Thanks, guys.